goody, here it comes.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show.
You are interested in the unknown, the mysterious, the unexplainable. That is why you are here.
Oh my God, don't stop now!
With your hosts, Brian, John, and Elaine.
Welcome to the Cinema Psycho Show, the madhouse for film freaks and film fans of all types. I'm your host, Brian Coddington, joined by my fellow co-hosts and filmmakers, John and Elaine Woolscroft.
Boo, assholes. Did I scare you?
Only with how big of a douche you are.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just kidding. I love you all.
Yeah.
Except you dirty Irish.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
Bringing it back.
Bringing it back from last week.
Why are you so mean to everyone? We, don't have enough fans for you to start alienating people.
Yeah, wait till we get, 1,000 downloads a day, and then we can go ahead and start alienating people.
At least wait till we're Pittsburgh famous. Have
Yeah,
some
we want to be
goddamn
Pittsburgh famous
self-respect.
first, God damn it.
Yeah, you son of a... Oh, it's me.
It's you.
Oh.
Yeah, always
so,
you.
So we're on episode 26 now.
Hot damn.
We're
Hot
getting
diggity
through these,
damn.
When did we get so old?
I know, right? In podcast years, I guess.
Aged so badly.
And we're dealing this week, kind of continuing along with the theme of the month, which is Halloween, with our kind of analysis of vampire movies.
Wait, I thought the theme was female reproductive health.
No.
Oh, your notes are completely irrelevant.
Yeah. Throw your notes away right now.
Oh, see, lady reproductive things look like a cow when you draw it. Okay, all my notes are done. Damn it.
Yeah. So we're gonna be talking about vampire movies and kind of doing one of our episodes where we kind of analyze a whole subsection of film. So it's going to be
it's a tall task.
It's a tall task.
I think we're up to it.
Yeah,
we're gonna do it. It's gonna be good. I like it.
So we have a little bit of a news bit. Elaine, you want to, or John, you want to take this one?
Yeah, well, it's in the vein of, what we usually do end up talking about. Now, last week we talked about our favorite horror movies, and Brian already talked a little bit of shit on the movie house a couple weeks ago.
Blumhouse.
But it
Justifiably
looks
so.
Yeah, but it looks like they might have a new project coming out that looks pretty good. But the surprising element is that it is a horror film that was written and directed by Jordan Peele.
It's called Get Out.
It's called Get Out, and you guys may know Jordan Peele from the show Key and Peele and the movie Keanu. He usually does things in a more comedic vein. So that's what attracted me to this, headline initially, because I just think it's so interesting that he's, more known for comedy and is coming now to a place of something infinitely darker. But the trailer hit today. The trailer is one of those trailers that's way too long and gives you way too much confusing shit.
It hit last week.
Oh, did it hit last week?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm behind.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah.
Remember when this airs.
My bad. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
So maybe you shouldn't make
wink.
so many errors.
I'm lost in the space-time continuum. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it hit last week because it is a new day because this is our new episode and we don't record a bunch at once.
No, why would we do that? That's
Bullshit.
No.
That's smart.
Bullshit.
That's smart.
Yeah, it is. So anyway, it hit last week. But I'm curious. I like Key and Peele a lot. I think they are hilarious. I was really, really depressed when they decided to end their show on Comedy Central. So it's cool to see a new project from them, and it's cool to see this drastic genre differentiation as well. So.
Well, what's the movie about?
So it looks like it's about
In a nutshell.
and I didn't
And
recognize.
this is kind of just based on the trailer. I mean, obviously.
And I didn't recognize the male actor, but I did see Allison Williams, from Girls. Looks like she's bringing her boyfriend home for the weekend, and she is white and he is black. He's got some concerns about that.
Yeah.
She doesn't have any concerns about that. But when they get there, to her parents' place for the weekend, it seems like a few things start kind of falling apart, start going a little bit awry. And her parents seem fucking crazy.
They do. They seem
they're so weird to him.
And everything has racial undertones and everything.
Right. And that's the thing that excites me
what I love about it.
About this film is that it is a horror film with a point. And I think those are always kind of the best, vein in which, to have something like the horror genre, like if you're making a greater point about society or about the human condition, I think that's more effective.
I would say this looks much better than a Medea Halloween if we're talking about black people's horror films. which is coming out, by the way.
Oh, is that seriously a real movie?
yeah.
I thought you were just joking.
yeah.
No, you need to look up the poster for the Medea Halloween right now. You need to do it right now.
I don't need to do that right now.
I'm going to make you.
God damn it.
Do it.
Brian is Googling as we speak. He is
no,
typing.
seriously.
And okay,
Well, and
I
too,
think
I
he's
wanted
about
to-
to hit enter.
And I wanted to talk about the cast a little bit, for the film, because the dad's played by Bradley Whitford. Dude is so white haired now. Like he didn't go gray. Like he is just like a shock of white hair.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Did you see the poster? It's
Are you
so good.
fucking kidding me?
I'm so mad. I'm so happy. Right? It's really bad, dude. What I
And
say.
I thought Rob Zombie bastardizing Halloween was enough. No, this is worse.
Oh, jury's out on that one.
Sorry.
When Weird Al Yankovic is in Halloween too.
I think I'd rather watch Weird Al Yankovic.
Hello, Mr. Weird.
Yeah.
But
So anyway,
Yeah.
so this new movie's coming out, and
I think it looks
I'm
great.
really curious. I think it could be really interesting.
Well, I mean, we were talking last week about kind of like what is a horror movie.
Yeah.
And it's dealing with fear. And I mean, you could say that this movie kind of, looks at the society we're in right now, where the Black Lives Matter movement is going, and there's a legitimate fear of people who are African American when it comes to white people.
Well, I mean, I
And,
think that immediately when
authority.
I saw the trailer, there's a part in the trailer where, Allison Williams' character is driving. I think she gets pulled over, maybe for speeding, maybe gets pulled over for nothing. But the cop asks for her.
his ID.
He
For her
asked for
boyfriend's
passenger.
ID.
Yeah, the passenger.
And she says he wasn't driving. And he's like, and the cop says, I know he wasn't driving. I didn't say he was. I asked for his ID.
Yeah.
And like that just made my blood run cold, because that is the
That's-
temperature of our society right now, and it's awful.
100% accurate. That's the
terrifying.
scary part. And it seems like, for me at least, watching the trailer, that it's that her parents are basically using mind control and that sort of thing on people who are African American and turning them into white people.
I wonder if it's going to be one of those psychological
That's
movies
the horror that I see in it.
that maybe they're not. Like maybe he is paranoid, and maybe we will be one of those movies that we never get a definitive answer.
Could be.
It could be.
But
Yeah.
the main thing is that black people have been vanishing from the town for a long time.
Yeah.
And this, our protagonist of this, I think his name is Chris. He may end up,
Being one of them.
meeting the same fate.
Yeah.
So.
So
Because Catherine Keener's in it as Allison Williams' mom.
Okay.
And they make reference to hypnotism in the trailer
Yes.
as well. And you wonder if, like, are they being brainwashed? Is, like, everybody in the town being brainwashed? Like,
I figured
very
it was
creepy
being
vibes.
brainwashed because his phone goes off and the flash goes ahead and like triggers, like you could sell it. It probably triggers off the brainwashing. That's why his nose started to bleed.
Oh,
one guy's
yeah,
nose started
yeah.
to
I
bleed,
mean, there's some
and he
really
started to,
frightening
freak
imagery.
the fuck out.
Yeah, there's some really frightening imagery.
Yeah. So I'm not going to apologize
No.
to Blumhouse.
Because you wouldn't be a man.
No, I'm just saying
They can,
that
they can eat a bag of shit,
Jesus Christ, John. I was the one who attacked them. Okay?
See, John has to take it to the next level until everyone
Don't take it to the
hates
next
us.
level yet.
I'm so sorry, dear
Okay.
listener.
I
Especially you, Megan.
actually said this on. I put this on Twitter. Okay, I tagged Blumhouse directly.
Oh.
And I said, even though that I talked about Blumhouse and their disagree with Blumhouse on their stance regarding Blair Witch, that this movie looks really good.
Yeah, hey.
So
Hey, that's big of you, dude.
I think, why can't they keep making movies that look like this?
Yeah, man. I mean,
Why make them? Why make Unfriended? Okay, why make Paranormal Activity 50? Okay.
There will be 50
Just
of
make
them.
movies
That's
that
more
look like
paranormally
this.
than the other ones.
It's true. It's true. But
Okay.
hey, I mean, even in this day and age, far be it from us to say we maybe aren't mistaken, about the movie house, and that they may not be
Blumhouse.
Yeah, well,
You said the movie house.
Well, I meant like the distributor. I didn't mean to say like Blumhouse incorrectly. I meant like they're a distributor.
The Flicka
Yeah.
Show production house.
Yeah, I guess I meant production house, and I did misspeak a little on that score. But
You're all right.
I still think their production company sounds like a sex act.
Oh, you're gonna get the Blumhouse, dude? Put the plastic sheets down.
Or Blumming.
Yeah.
Ew, oh God! As always, you guys
I'm
make
just
this way
saying.
more
I'm
wrong
just saying.
than it
Like,
needs to be.
it's still, that's a terrible name for a production. I know it's the name of the one guy who runs the show there, but Jesus fucking Christ.
You can name your own like thing anything you want. You can name your own company, whatever you want. It
Yeah,
doesn't have to be your
but
name.
it just sounds.
What
like
did he
a sex
die of?
act.
12 hours of Blumhousing.
I was
Whole
to say
thing.
12 hours of Blumming.
Ew.
It's running rampant.
How do I hang out with you
I'm
guys?
sorry, not sorry, is what I'm saying.
Sorry, not sorry.
So what you're kind of
Hashtag it.
so basically what you're kind of trying to say here is why can't they make more movies that make our
That are
blood run
good.
cold and don't suck? Speaking of sucking blood, we are doing an episode on vampires today.
Does it again?
Today, I consider myself.
Nicely
So
done.
yeah, vampire movies. I would say vampire movies are those types of movies that they're the most abused because every year, every generation, you kind of see they come back
Zombies
into
are catching up.
I
popularity,
mean, unto every generation, there is a chosen one.
something like that.
Buffy reference.
But I just meant
Beefy.
kind of along the lines of every generation, either vampire movies are shunned and they're torn apart, or they're like put on the pedestal. Like it's kind of like an ebb and flow. And right now we're in an ebb.
It's true.
Well,
Bottomed
vampires
out.
are very much like they become their own product. They're very much like Mickey Mouse. You can have a vampire that is truly horrifying. You can have a vampire that counts to children. You can have vampires that sell cereal. You can have
Sparkly
vampires.
vampires.
Sparkly
Sparkly
fuckers.
vampires, yeah, romantic vampires. You can have a
Fuckers.
vampire
I call
that
them fuckers. That's
you can
what
have
I
a
call them.
half-breed vampire that kills other vampires. It's like there's all kinds of different variations and take on. You can have black vampires. Vampire in Brooklyn and Blackula. One movie
Yeah.
a little better than the other.
I think Blackula kind of gets the good,
yeah. Eddie Murphy can suck it.
literally.
Oh, that was good.
So do you want to talk a little bit about kind of like
Did you just mention his transvestite prostitute hunting? Is that what when you said
No.
literally?
No.
He can
No,
suck
I
it?
was just saying because he was playing a vampire in
Oh.
Brooklyn. Jesus Christ!
I thought you just meant that because Eddie Murphy loves transvestite prostitutes.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Well, except when you try to cover it up.
Transvestite.
I was just trying to give somebody a ride.
God. So yeah.
Moving on.
Moving
Stunned
on.
into silence.
You want to talk a little bit about kind of vampires' history in movies?
Yeah,
Well,
dude, you have so many
You,
notes.
you actually have like a shit ton of
John
notes
has
here.
this by the ass. Like, seriously.
Well, some do basically say that, vampires can go back as far as Mesopotamia, ancient Greece, to one iteration or another. But it wasn't really till, around the 1700s that the Eastern European, kind of the Balkans version of the vampire as we know it in, kind of modern society came about and, basically kind of gave birth to the whole kind of the Dracula model of, vampires.
That was mostly like it was Bram Stoker
Yes.
who really went ahead and created that. He kind of took he took it as an amalgamation of different types of vampires that
Well, the
existed
legend
throughout
has
history.
been around forever.
Well, there's Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler, which was, loosely based on that and his conquering and putting his victims on spikes.
But then also you
bloodletting.
have Elizabeth Bathory. That was a real person that went ahead and would drain the blood of young women and
Such a
bathe
cool
in the
story.
blood. Oh yeah, I'm surprised that hasn't been made into a movie.
It has, just shitty ones.
Yeah, but there should be a good one.
There should be a good one. And two, if she would like to share her skincare secrets, I am interested.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
Well, too,
But-
one of the interesting things, just as a side note, since we're waist deep in the whole vampire thing anyway, I thought it was really interesting with, the man who became known as Vlad the Impaler. His armies would always attack with the sun to their backs, like at sunset.
Oh,
and
wow.
they would unleash hordes of bats that they had.
Seriously?
Yeah, that they had collected at the enemy to confuse and alarm them.
Holy
so they're
fuck.
staring into the sun. They always position their armies so that the enemy was staring into the sun, and then they would release these bats, and that's where the legend that Dracula, Vlad, whatever, could transform himself into a bat came to light. Pretty fucking cool.
That
right?
is fucking awesome.
History and shit, man.
History.
That and he would like impale his people,
Oh, yeah.
impale people, and
The
just
dude was
kind of
fucked up.
eat underneath their corpses. Like he would eat underneath their corpses impaled. That's what the man would do. That
hey, you don't know. Maybe it's
he also
delicious.
slaughtered like all of the noblemen who wouldn't support him. trapped him in a room and killed
He was
him.
messed up, man.
Okay, so on 3, let's just spurt out what race we think would be the most delicious. 1, 2. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, John!
But speaking of,
You gotta put a little bit of that clown back in that box. Like you.
No,
are...
I think that fucker's Pandora. You can't get that out. It's
all
out.
the
It's
evil
out
in the
there.
world.
but
has been
speaking of
unleashed.
whitewashing, it's funny that the Eastern European is what we think of with vampires, but it's all different cultures. The Zhengxi in China, the Chinese vampires. Every
Holy
generation
shit,
has
you've got
some
even
kind of
like the name for it.
some
I
variation.
thought
of
I
it.
knew my
Brian,
vampire
we don't
stuff.
have to do shit. Like he's got this. We can just sit here and enjoy it.
Well, vampires often were, used in the same way, like say witches were during the Salem, days. That it was before science had an explanation for things, for babies being born blind, for crops, going under before, they had to base it on evil spirits because they had to have some kind of explanation. So they based it on a vampire, like evil spirit
Vampires
that causes
were
problem.
more about the people's inability to understand how the body decomposes. That was really the big thing. I mean, people would go ahead and they especially during like the Black Plague, they would bury these bodies in mass graves, and then they'd have to go uncover them to throw more bodies in, and they would find
Which
that
is just
some of them.
efficient.
Well, no, but they would find that these bodies it looked like they had grown new skin. It looked like their fingernails had grown. On top of that, their body had been engorged with blood and looked like they had blood coming out of their mouth.
Exactly.
On top of that, I mean, things
if
like
they would bury them
like
in the
having
wintertime,
5 o'clock
too.
shadow.
Yeah. If they would bury them in the wintertime, they wouldn't decompose as fast. So a lot of these people were digging up their loved ones for fear that they were vampires. They would see that they hadn't decomposed that much and had blood around their mouths, and they would decapitate their loved ones.
They would decapitate, and here's another thing
Which I
they
think
would
is
do.
hilarious.
Another thing they would do in Romania, they would actually have a spike that goes down. I remember hearing about this as I used to study vampires in college, and they would have a spike that actually goes down.
Was this
past
a class
the grave.
or just like extracurricular?
No, it was just extracurricular. They would have a spike that actually goes down, and in case of a vampire, they would put the spike down into the grave, just in case. And they still do it. There are some areas of Romania that still do that.
Hey, sadly, I could see people doing that now because they're afraid that zombies will be real someday. So I
think there's more people that believe zombies could happen than vampires.
Well, too, when you talk about like the destruction of these creatures, John had a really interesting thought the other night, and this frequently happens in our household where he'll be like, "Oh, I have like a really good thought about the show," and I'm like, "Shut the fuck up! I don't want to hear it until the show," because he'll say it and then we'll forget it, and like we won't have like
Write it down.
as good of a content, or whatever. Because like we'll see a movie and I'll be like, "We're not talking about it; it'll ruin the show." But we had talked about the destruction of, say vampires versus zombies. And we thought, that it was definitely interesting that you destroy the heart of one and the brain of another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because, one is, and I don't know if it's because of the charisma of the undead as compared to, of a zombie, but, it's because the other one has much more personality. You go for the heart, which is, a metaphor for, all of our emotions and love and empathy and then you destroy the brain of something that is just a walking id factory of hunger.
I always saw the heart and blood associated with the vampires as a representation of life. That's considered the life fluid. A lot of cultures view blood
Absolutely.
as a sacred, life-giving liquid. And that, the main engine that would drive a vampire would be its heart because it's pumping that life, liquid. I never thought about it regarding zombies. I always thought it as the brain, its impulses is causing the body to move around. However, you can go ahead and look at Return of the Living Dead zombies, and they don't exactly follow the rules. They go by their own fucking rules. But it's much more fun to watch that.
But hey, this ain't no goddamn history podcast.
No,
This
it's
is
not.
a movie podcast.
Yeah. So
Motion picture.
the movie Vampire. It's one of the most interesting stories how this film kind of came to be. Was the first vampire movie actually that we know about is Nosferatu, but there actually was one before it.
Ooh,
that stars Lon Chaney, and it was it's a lost film. But I think it's called just The Vampire.
If a film is lost, did anybody really see it? Does
Well,
it really exist?
they have
So deep.
well, they do. They have
Yeah.
stills from this movie, but I believe it was just called the Vampire.
That's creative.
No, well, this was back in
That's the first one. Like they
this is
call the
back in,
first
like, the
Batman movie
teens,
Batman.
man.
You know what I mean?
back in the teens. But yeah, they I think it was called the Vampire, if I remember correctly. I'm looking on IMDb right now. But tell me a little bit about Nosferatu while I'm looking this shit up.
Well, Nosferatu is a silent classic, so not for the kids. There's no Takken. But just, it was a film where they could not get the rights to the novel of Dracula. So basically they just made Dracula but renamed it Nosferatu to the point
Like you do.
to the point where the estate of, Dracula sued and won because
London
it was-
After Midnight. London After Midnight, 1927.
which is a better title than you gave. You were just like vampire.
Well, here's the thing: have you ever seen pictures from Lon Chaney as London After Midnight? That's the vampire.
Oh, I have
Oh, with that bitch in hat.
The bitch in hat,
seen
and then
that.
the creepy fucking fish hooks for eyes, and the fanged mouth. That movie is lost. It's considered lost. It's almost like Nosferatu was. Nosferatu for the longest time was considered lost because
They destroyed it.
Well, yeah, the Stoker family. They said it's an unauthorized version. Destroyed it. They had a court order to get it destroyed, and a couple people saved copies of it. And years later, they found that they were able to go ahead and restore it to the version we have now. But what's interesting about that movie is just how that it's still terrifying, even with it being silent. And the performance really you get from Max Schreck, which is hilarious because his name is German for scream. It seriously is. Schreck is shriek in German.
And for all of our deep cut listeners who have listened to our Batman Return references, Christopher Walken's character is Max Schreck, based obviously the idea that he is a soulless, blood-sucking corporate tycoon.
Either
And
that
that's
or
why
Tim
they-
Burton was just a fan of Nosferatu, which he
Probably.
obviously was.
You know what I want is I want to make this Batman claymation.
But
no, Tim.
But Nosferatu came out at a time when really German expressionism was kind of like the big thing. You had this movie, The Golem, Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, all using these very bizarre shit, a lot of archways, a lot of geometric shapes that were not proportioned correctly. They exist in these really bizarre worlds, and Nosferatu, it's a telling of Dracula, obviously, but it's the shots that Murnau was able to use for it are really terrifying stuff. Like you watch it and you've got and then the other thing too is that they use a nice addition of color in the film too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was the
kind of-
tinting and toning thing.
Tinting and
Pretty
toning
cool.
of it.
Yeah.
It's a cool effect though, for sure.
But I think obviously the next logical step is Dracula, the 1931,
Which is based off the play.
based off the play. Yes.
Fun fact: Dracula is my favorite ballet, by the way.
Seriously?
My favorite ballet.
Okay.
It is beautiful
Yeah, based off the play.
and creepy.
Well, this is not necessarily a ballet.
Sorry, I got excited.
It's shot very much. I mean, most movies were, but it was shot, very much like a play because it was based off of that, starring Bela Lugosi. Something to take into consideration when this movie came out is they really pushed the idea that vampires were real.
Seriously?
Yeah, and a lot of film audiences were terrified. I don't think a lot of them necessarily thought that Bela Lugosi was a vampire that they were filming, but the idea, like, oh my god, and places like Transylvania, this is real. This is a real.
Well, the marketing for it was billed as the greatest, the strangest love story ever known. Like that was what I think the title for it was because it came out, I believe, on Valentine's Day. Yeah,
that's some good marketing there. I like that.
What I find interesting about that movie is the fact that it came out at a time when studios would go ahead and make two different versions for different audiences. So they made a Spanish language version of Dracula at the exact same time as they were making the English language version. And what's debatable is that some people say that the Spanish language version of Dracula actually is more technically advanced than the version of Dracula with Bela Lugosi in it.
Ooh,
They actually did
interesting.
special effects. They had camera moves. They did a lot. And they would film this thing using the exact same sets that Todd Browning was using. They would just have Spanish language actors in. And I mean, they did a lot for 1930s. You had like superimpositions, and you had fades and smokes and things like that. Things that you don't really see Dracula do. Like, you never really see him turn into a bat, like on screen.
Right.
He kind of like disappears, and then he like kind of pops up, and that's it. But that's also because like Todd Browning was a theater director. He
That
looked
makes a
at
lot of
things
sense.
in. That's why you see a lot of wide shots
Exactly. Yeah.
in Dracula. You never see any real like you see close-ups, but there's no real movement of the frame at all. It's just kind of stationary, wide, and they also it came out at the time when sound was kind of new. They would hide microphones in like the plants, so that's why you see like all those characters kind of congregate around a plant because they didn't
And that's
understand
very
how it worked.
typical of the first,
Yeah.
films of that era that were trying to incorporate sound.
I just assumed people back then were just ate plants. Like, all right, let's feast.
Another fun fact: Lon Chaney was offered the part of Dracula, but he died before he was able to take it.
Interesting.
Typical. What a nice excuse. Death.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bela Lugosi
Twitter.
probably, like, while it's his most famous role, it almost had no choice. Like, he probably almost wishes he wasn't because of that fear of vampires. He kind of was always typecast as Dracula for the rest of his career. So it made his career but ruined it simultaneously.
Yeah,
That's deep.
that is some deep shit right there.
But I think the next logical step here is the Hammer horror films.
Oh, yeah.
That were made for about 20 years. A lot of them starring Christopher Lee and others. And I think what is important to note here is when these films started, it was really around the time that Alfred Kinsey was doing his sex studies.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. That was around the 50s.
And so while obviously Bela Lugosi's was a great seductor, like, obviously these vampires were a little more aggressive. One could argue for its time a little more perverse because we were having a sexual awakening in the country. Very, very. I mean, this is still Eisenhower country here, so not too much, but they did kind of reflect as we were culturally shifting sexually. So were the vampires and becoming more, I'd say, more in touch with what vampires are in terms of storytelling, in novelization form.
Well, I think what's also interesting is that with the Hammer films, they really not only did they go, deep with the sexuality. You had like actresses like Ingrid Pitt, for instance, who became like some of the first scream queens that were all Hammer actors. But they were the first ones to really use gore in horror movies in general. Mm-hmm. There was no real gore back then. It wasn't until you had Horror of Dracula where you finally see that Dracula, he drinks blood, and you see the blood on screen. So I mean, they tapped into that visceral nature of it, and you do have a more violent Dracula, and a lot of people would say that Christopher Lee is the better Dracula than Bela Lugosi. I kind of see both things. I'm like, if you could mishmash both of them together, then you will get the perfect Dracula. But the other thing to note about Hammer was that they kind of, they existed in the realm of the gothic horror. They had castles. Even with Bela Lugosi's Dracula, it still existed in somewhat modern times.
Yeah.
It was still 1930s. But with, the Hammer's Dracula, they were going for the castles. They were going for the traditional Dracula kind of landscape, even with Frankenstein, which they did after they did Dracula.
And obviously there's a big difference between what we get in Nosferatu and what we get in Dracula and the Hammer films. You get a monster, essentially, in Nosferatu, but you get very human, monsters in these films, and I think it was a big shift between the fear of the unknown and then really shifting to fear of the known. Well,
it became a matter of really driving home the sexual fears, mm-hmm. Things like venereal disease, things along those lines. That vampires typically tap into that's all fear of sexuality, fear of disease, fear of immigrants. That's another thing too. Dracula is considered an immigrant. He's in England and he's a foreigner. Okay, so you're dealing with that too. A lot of different levels to Dracula.
Donald Trump will build a wall to keep Dracula out.
Don't give him fucking ideas.
I don't care for Dracula.
I don't care for Dracula.
Let me tell you, I know more about vampires than anybody, than even the generals. Trust me on that.
I know more than Van Helsing about Dracula. Okay.
Orange face God. Nazi. Anyways, moving on. As a quick side note, because I think it's really interesting. The era in which it came out is Dark Shadows, which was a very popular daytime soap opera serialized show about vampires. And most
Barnabas
the other ones,
Collins.
Yeah.
Other ones were about hospitals and things like that. This one was about vampires. And I mean, this came out right in the heart of the civil rights movement, the Kent State shootings, and it actually offered us a little bit of, levity. The vampires were actually a little funny, a little goofy, campy, in a time when,
you have the
that was
monsters
needed.
to thank for that, though.
Yeah, and a lot of television was in that time.
Yeah.
Either television was naive or an escape or both. And this show was no different, and in its take on vampires and that kind of, parameter.
I think you can kind of look at Dark Shadows as kind of like the proto version of a lot of these horror-based TV shows that you see now. Like, I guess you could say, what the hell? Like Teen Wolf. I hate that show.
Vampire
shows
Diaries?
like that. Vampire Diaries. Laying your face.
I watched that show
like,
for so long that so much longer than anyone should. Like,
right.
I got so sucked in, and then it got bad, and then I just couldn't.
But even
stop
shows
watching it.
like True Blood, for instance. Okay?
True Blood was awesome.
True Blood is awesome. But I'm saying like Dark Shadows was kind of like the beginning of that, where it became an episodic type show dealing with vampires and other kinds of bizarre creatures.
And then what started to happen in the 70s is we had a little bit of a cultural revolution. Fortunately, we're still going through that revolution with, the movie we talked about as our little news piece at the beginning of this. But with the blaxploitation movement, with like Shaft and Superfly, we had Blacula, which is awesome. I love Blacula.
I've only seen it like I think once, and it was years ago. But isn't the premise like Blacula was like Dracula's servant or something like that, or what was the whole deal behind that movie?
He basically is just is the Dracula story, but black.
So that's what they did. Yeah. That's a lot of those movies were based around that.
Which they you're finally getting the version of that story for you in that situation if you're African American, which is good, which is really good, but. I don't know if we have too much to say on that film other than, historically you look at it in context of, okay, so we've had monster vampires, we've had seductive vampires, we've had comic vampires, and now we get, a different than what's typical, a different minority, as a vampire. Yeah. So we're starting already by the 1970s here. Now we've gone 40 years and we've gotten quite a large variety of vampires, and then unfortunately we get the me generation of the 90s, and we get the Anne Rice vampires.
You don't like the Anne Rice vampires?
Well, it's the first time that we really see the self-reflective, mopey vampire that spends its time.
Your voice is dripping with so much contempt right now.
I'm guessing you really just don't like Anne Rice, is what I'm getting here.
Navel gazing.
That's very astute, Brian. Very, very clever of you.
These are the navel gazing.
Navel gazing vampires.
And it's very reflective of the late 70s of everything. The Ayn Rand generation of everything's about me, and that, and so became the vampires. They became mopey. They become self-reflective. They've focused entirely on themselves, and that was that's the kind of vampires that we got. In the Vampire Chronicles, and then later in the 90s when we got Interview with the Vampire, which was decent.
I like Interview with the Vampire.
It's a little long, and once again a little
very long.
Self-obsessed, but
yeah.
I think heavy-handed is the word.
Yeah. And then the 80s, it starts to you start to get
all over the map.
Well, yeah, it is. It's really all over the map. And I think the reason why it's all over the map is because the vampire films now had to compete with the Freddys, the Hellraiser, the Jason. 80s was such a landmark, decade for horror films, and it was mostly dominated by slasher films. So how does the older,
what about 78 to 86 was like the slasher film era, like the true.
I'd say it goes all the way up until about 90. 90. No, actually, no. I'd say 92 because Leprechaun came out in 92. So I'd say that's the last real true.
I think around 86 it started, like, not drastically, but it started to go down in popularity. I mean, I remember they rushed out Halloween 5 as fast as they possibly could. A lot of the
franchises that had started in the birth of the slasher film, so like the Halloween and Jason, those all started like around 79 and 78 and 80. Those franchises, they were starting to get long in the tooth.
Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah, Sleepaway Camp. But I think that the vampire films kind of tried to find a way to compete. So you kind of had some vampire movies that were over the top and fucking goofy as all hell, which I watched a couple of them. I watched Once Bitten.
Vampire Kiss,
which is one of the best Nicolas Cage films out there.
My Best Friend's a Vampire.
My Best Friend's a Vampire is hilarious. That seriously is a hilarious fucking movie.
Well, isn't it interesting that in the era of AIDS, and the idea of drinking blood, that they took a more cartoonish and silly approach, because obviously the brevity of dealing with AIDS in a film about drinking blood, that maybe you had to go a little sillier and
I think they
lighter.
had to. I think it's definitely like with My Best Friend's a Vampire. Not only do you have the whole AIDS crisis going on at the time, because even the character mentions, "Oh God, do I have AIDS?" when he thinks he's in that I forget the name of the tutor who comes in, the older guy who kind of tutors him in being a vampire.
Oh yeah.
But he thinks he has AIDS initially, because he had sex. Because he had sex with the vampire and got bit by her, and he thinks he's turned into one. So he even mentions like, "Oh God, do I have AIDS?" And then throughout the whole movie, his parents think that he's gay because he's hanging around with this older guy and talking to him, and they come in this room, and he's like, "Well, I thought you were talking to a guy." So
what did Marty McFly's parents think?
No, but seriously, like
Mom, Dad, I have to go meet the weird eccentric scientist at the mall at 3 a.m.
Hey, save it for our Back to the Future episode.
Right.
Coming
soon. But like that movie in particular deals with a lot of that, and then you've got Once Bitten, which, oh God, fucking Jim Carrey.
Introduced James Carrey to the world.
In his first big major role, which I'm assuming that this movie got him the role in Earth Girls Are Easy.
Which is awesome.
It is an awesome film. I think that one might have to be a pantheon of other shit right there. Okay?
Yeah.
But you've got Lauren Hutton as the aging female vampire, and with her eccentrically gay handman, who's actually played by I forget his name, but he was the sheriff in Blazing Saddles.
Was it? Wait, what?
Yes.
Really?
Oh yeah. That was his last real role. Besides from an episode of Tales from the Crypt, but that was.
Now I'm googling. See if you're right on.
Look at how prepared we are, guys.
Elaine, fill in dead air.
Oh, mama, baby, oh, mama, darling.
Oh, it was Cleveland. Yeah,
Look at you guys.
Yeah.
Right. You Googled quick. Yeah. Proud of you both.
Yeah. His last real role, because he was in an episode of Tales from the Crypt, and that was his actual last role. But yeah, Once Bitten, hilarious fucking movie. It's basically about Jim Carrey as a sex-obsessed teenager who
just all 80s movies were.
He just wanted to get a piece. That's it. The poor guy just wanted to get a piece, and his girlfriend wouldn't give it up. So he goes to Hollywood.
There's so much wrong with what you just said here.
I'm
like his
saying that 'cause
girlfriend
the
is a
movie-
vending machine in which sex
Let me
needs to
talk
fall
to the
out.
This was
broads.
the
Hey,
age-
sugar tits. Maybe if you sucked a dick every once in a while, your guy wouldn't be going and banging some transvestite whore, okay? Maybe give up the butt every once in a while. If you want him to really stick around, maybe cook him dinner when you're done, okay?
Oh my God.
Hey, come on.
Holy shit.
No one's ever going to listen to our show ever again. It's your fault.
Dice Man tickets are available.
I just want to specify that I'm reading the plot of the film here.
Oh, I'd like to specify that I regret my marriage.
Oh, okay, so it's
Okay,
like that.
all right.
But yeah,
I
you've got Jim
regret.
Carrey. He has sex with Lauren Hutton, and he gets bitten by her, and basically slowly turned into a vampire. And it's got everything an 80s movie should. It's got a dance sequence. It's got goofy 80s styling and goofy 80s comedy. Okay? And, of course, homophobia, which is in every 80s movie, too.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously. Major league homophobia. But yeah, you have that you have movies like that, and then you've got movies like, Vampire's Kiss with, fucking Nick Cage.
Nick Cage, I'm a vampire.
I'm a vampire. I'm a vampire. I'm a vampire. And then at the same time, you've got movies like The Lost Boys, which is one of the best vampire movies out there, and Near Dark.
Which
Another really good vampire
which is interesting because apparently even Joel Schumacher can
He can crap out a nugget every once in a while.
can strike gold once,
Yeah.
So good for you, Joel.
But and those vampires I think those are the ones that really compete with the slasher films because they go in a very gruesome and very violent way. Lost Boys, you have people getting fucking eaten apart. Like the pack of vampires go ahead and they spring on a bunch of hippies and start ripping it apart.
Was Lost Boys one of the first times that we had a vampire that could fly without changing into an animal? I believe that was one of the first. They kind of changed the rules.
Yeah, I mean that's
that
the thing
one.
with vampire movies. They kind of change the rules all the time.
Yeah, I mean, what kills a vampire, what doesn't. And in fact, these movies, they've made so many of them that they become meta in the sense that, you see too many movies. Like, when they throw holy water, it's like, when you're self-referencing, it's like, oh, wow, there's been a lot of vampire movies.
Yeah. But I think that was one of the first ones that actually does fly on their own.
What's interesting about Kiefer Sutherland, by the way, is he said in the movie that he purposely didn't hang around Corey Haim or Corey Feldman, to keep up the fear on camera, and that he would be rude or scary to them when he would be around them, so that it really showed in film. He said the same thing about Stand By Me, and I'm just starting to wonder, maybe you're just an asshole.
He's just an asshole.
Maybe Kiefer Sutherland's a dick. I don't think you're some great method actor. I just think you're an
Michael,
asshole.
you're eating maggots, Michael.
But yeah, Lost Boys is just that kind of really, different movie right in the midst of, of that era. But speaking of, comedy in terms of your vampire movies, obviously this is the era of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, first the movie and then the TV show.
That came out in 92?
Yes.
92. So that's also a good year because another vampire movie came out around the same time.
Right.
Getting there. But, one thing that was real nice about this is Joss Whedon, flipped it on his head and made the hero of the story, usually who used to be the victim of the story, and, had a female-centric hero, i.e. Buffy. And that was just kind of, extremely progressive in the same way Blackula was. The hero of the story is a lady.
And Pee Wee Herman is a very creepy vampire in it.
Oh,
from the film version, yes.
Yeah, and anybody that
I only
knows
pay
me-
attention to the film version. I'm sorry, I don't. watch the
anybody
TV
that
show.
knows me, I know enough about Buffy for the both of us, and anybody that knows me knows it's absolutely one of my favorite shows, one of my favorite fandoms. I mean, it's definitely my strongest connection to the Whedon verse. It's my strongest love of his work. But I think what was interesting, if you look at the early years of the television show, is that they made vampires and demons and monsters really great metaphors for the condition of being in high school.
Yeah.
And for surviving high school. And I actually, when the show came out, it was 1997 when it aired. It was like a spring release, and it got me the entire way through high school. Like, I started.
Wow.
I mean, in my school, we were split K to 6 and then 7 to 12 because I was in a small town, and it got me 7 to 12. It ended
Right.
the year I graduated high school. So I mean, there's no more perfect, picture than that. Like, I graduated Buffy Saved the World a lot.
Dragon Ball Z got me through high school.
Okay. See,
Yeah.
I mean, we all
That was
had
pretty
our
much
thing, but for me,
Fever and masturbation got me through high school.
no one is surprised.
Well, I think that got every boy through high school. Bang.
but the vampire situation, they used vampires and other demons in a lot of ways to tell, stories that are universally understood,
Right.
Except that one awful episode apparently where they used like alcohol, like there was some kind of supernatural alcohol, and Buffy got all messed up on it.
Oh, beer bad. That's
Yeah.
a good episode where they spelled this beer and it turns her into
It's supposed
a
to be
cave
one of the
woman.
worst episodes.
It turns her into a cave woman. It's really funny though. It's really funny.
I'm just looking like, seriously?
It's really funny, honestly. But you've got to be in a situation where you already love the characters. It's in
Okay.
season 4, so you're already invested. You know what I mean? Like if this was your introduction to the show,
I was going to say, like, that's not a season 1
But yeah,
episode.
it's very funny.
Well, apparently
if you
2
know
and
the
3 are the
characters.
really nice seasons.
Yeah,
of Buffy.
2 and 3 are my favorite seasons for sure.
And then of course everything comes full circle, eventually, and we get to Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
One of my
So,
absolute favorite
you know.
versions of Dracula.
So grandiose.
And once
So
again,
awesome.
a fairly faithful adaptation of the story. A little. I mean, obviously things are going to be borrowed and changed and shifted.
You know where they pulled from?
Where?
They pulled from a couple different sources. They pulled from a Jess Franco version of Dracula from the 70s. It was called Count Dracula, and it has Christopher Lee. He's not in a Hammer film. It's actually a Jess Franco film.
He just really loved playing Dracula.
And it's him, and it's him. It was billed as the most faithful version of Dracula at the time. So it's him with the mustache and everything. Because if you actually read the book Dracula is described as having a mustache, having the whole works.
So it looks like Burt Reynolds.
It kind of looks like Burt Reynolds. So they pulled from that. They also pulled from a version of Dracula that starred Jack Palance.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, he can eat enough scenery for
Yeah.
that to work.
But the whole love story triangle of it, that was
number one.
that's Jack Nicholson.
No, Jack
Oh,
Palance.
Jack Palance. Yeah.
Remember, he did it first.
Yes,
Yeah.
he did. He did. You're right.
Don't
You're right.
forget your lucky deck.
Okay, I got that one. But like the whole love story of Dracula's love being reincarnated, that was pulled from the Jack Palance version of Dracula. So it was kind of an amalgamation of these different versions, and along with the idea of mixing more of the novel in and making it basically built around effects that could only be done in camera. That's the one thing that Dracula version is known for, is everything in that camera is not a digital effect. Everything is practical.
Which is amazing when you think about the shadows that play by their own rules.
Yeah.
That
was all superimpositions. That was all done inside the camera. And it was actually Francis Ford Coppola's son who was kind of the effects guy behind it.
There's so many of those Coppolas.
There really are.
So many.
And Schwartzman's.
Nick Cage is a Coppola.
Schwartzman's a Coppola.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High, he was
Yeah.
Nicky Coppola if you check the credits.
But
he hadn't changed his name yet.
What's interesting is that version of Dracula actually saved Francis Ford Coppola's studio, American Zoetrope, because he was bankrupt. He quite literally he was out of money.
He was out of that sweet Cap Neo money.
Well, it was Apocalypse Now that bankrupted him.
Which is a masterpiece, but that movie nearly killed everybody
Right,
involved.
but the whole point is that they had done that. They had done Godfather Part 3, and they were out of fucking money. So they needed to make something to save the studio. So they did Dracula. And originally they were supposed to go ahead and just do a Dracula where it's all like they would have just characters with one light on them, surrounded by black, and that was it. Like they were going to do kind of like a weird stage version. But it kind of morphed into this more elaborate version that we have now. And on top of that, and here's a really cool thing where it kind of, deals with filmmakers. Now, they were the first major film to use digital editing.
Interesting.
They were the first one. They did it as a cost-saving measure.
Makes sense.
So I mean that's something important to note about Dracula, is that it's not only is it a grandiose film and one of the best pieces in my opinion of gothic horror, but it kind of left its mark on digital filmmaking.
Well, the thing that always bothered me is, Gary Oldman maybe never's been better, just unbelievable. But why would you cast Winona Ryder and Keanu? Like
That was quite
They're
literally
so bad. They really bring the movie down.
Yeah, that was quite literally to cash in on women. Keanu was for that. That was the whole reason.
Well, I imagine Winona was there to cash in on men too. I'm
I'm not quite sure why they went with Winona. I mean, honestly, like,
she's buxom.
Yeah, I guess
Is she
so.
though?
Oh, she's got really nice titties. Very nice.
Okay.
She's also very funny and creative and intelligent.
Okay.
Women are funny. Get over it.
Yeah.
Big
So
names.
that that's 90s vampires, and that kind of kickstarted like horror movies that all kind of based themselves off of literary characters. Like they had Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and they did
Starring De Niro.
That
That was very forgotten, that movie.
I love that movie too.
It's
a
pretty good.
really good. I think it's produced by the same people who did
The
Dracula.
video game off of that is much better than the Dracula video game.
That video game is a pain in the fucking ass. I hate that video game so much.
The Sega CD version is just unacceptable too.
The Genesis version was terrible.
I had both.
But you had that. You had Jekyll and Hyde movie that came out, and Mary Riley. They started a whole bunch of these gothic horror movies, and then of course
one successful, then it's going to breed others.
Yeah. And then through the 90s, you kind of start to see vampires kind of splinter, in my opinion. You've got this new breed of vampire that pops up. I blame kind of Interview with the Vampire for causing Twilight a little bit.
Well, I mean, hey.
Do you got some more?
I was gonna say, well, then there's Blade, which is the less said about that, the better. I don't.
Yeah, first Marvel film.
Yeah, it kind of kicked off. It proved that those kind of movies can make
Marvel
money,
film.
and then X-Men came along, made a boatload of money, and all of a sudden they said, "Hey, shit,
What do we have here?
yeah, what do we have here?"
Although those vampires are scarier than the Twilight vampires, and that shit.
Yeah, Anne Rice did kind of give birth to the mopey Twilight vampire, where
Hearts.
we finally
vampires
come.
are just misunderstood.
Yeah,
They don't
we
even fucking
come.
drink blood.
Yeah. Now they're just like, yeah, I only want to drink the blood of animals, like, which is what Lestat in Interview with the Vampire was.
Louis drinks the blood of rats. He prefers to drink that. He won't
Right.
drink the blood of humans.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Lestat has no problem with
Lestat, he will fucking bite anyone. He doesn't give a fuck.
All right,
I'm-
that's Tom
I'm
Cruise,
pretty
right?
sure he butt chugged blood. I could
did.
Be wrong.
Well, I'm pretty sure Tom Cruise is into butt chugging. But
He threw a prostitute in a coffin.
You
It was
always
just like,
pick
you're in
the
a coffin.
exact people that have a reputation for destroying those who go against them.
I'm sorry that I mentioned known homosexual Tom Cruise
Oh, God!
Damn it!
and his fraud of a
fuck's
religion, Scientology, which is a scam. Tom, you can admit it. You're a homosexual and your religion's a scam, and you're a bad.
I'll
actor,
agree with you on the
and you're
religion
short.
part, but Jesus fucking Christ.
I mean, it doesn't matter if he is, but he has done a lot of terrible things to people for saying a lot less. John, can you get your shit together, please?
Look, all I'm saying is that he is a homosexual, blatant homosexual.
Anyway, for fuck's sake.
Anyway,
Anyways,
getting back to vampires.
God, would you guys knock it off? But yeah, but the thing is, around Twilight, we also had True Blood, which is, speaking of homosexuality, it couldn't be more of an allegory for homosexuality, could it? That's exactly what the show's about.
God hates fangs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And about coming out of the closet and being accepted in
And,
society.
and I think it's interesting that that's the theme that the book or that the show really took, because I have read all the books, and I don't find that that's as prevalent, I guess, because it's a book, you're not dealing with images as much.
Yeah.
And I think that they do a really good job of portraying images and the basic bias of people. It's an external view more because it's a visual medium, whereas if you do read the Sookie Stackhouse books, they're very much inside of Sookie's head.
Right.
So you don't really see, you can't really step outside and see the world as it is. You only really see it as she perceives it, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it turns both of those mediums into two different beasts, excuse the pun.
Yeah.
I do like the books in their own right because I like Sookie a lot better in the books. She's just, there's something about her that's just infinitely more likable. Not to say that I don't like Anna Paquin, but
I do.
I just get tired of everything in the show wanting to fuck her. I just find that
It either wants to fuck her or eat her.
It's true.
That's
well,
it.
those could be the same thing.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, honestly, that show pretty much went downhill the minute that they mentioned fairies.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something that's in the books. I get that it comes from there too. I think when any medium, like a show, when it goes a little too far and loses a little focus, like it's gonna suffer. Even if the source material has something like that, you know, I think that is sort of the beginning of the end, you know. But,
well, the thing is, if they cry blood, does that mean they ejaculate blood?
yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They never,
Well, I mean, I ejaculate blood too, but
Yeah, you gotta get that
but
checked.
you really should
gotta
see
get
a
that
doctor.
checked.
That's a given.
oh, my prostate hurts. Ow. Okay.
Would
Would you, now let me ask you a question. Would you guys agree that show quite literally jumped the shark the minute Russell Edgington went ahead and ripped apart that girl on TV?
No, I thought that was actually.
Well, I would say that's the best part. Like quite literally, you can track
I
the
wouldn't say
whole
that.
show.
Well, that's not jumping the shark. That's just peeking. I'd say that's peeking.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's the moment that
I mean, like that's the moment when quite literally
like it gets no better.
it gets no better than that.
Yeah.
I would
It
say
goes
great.
down
It's
the
pretty great.
fucking hill.
Pretty
Yeah,
great.
but jumping the shark infers that they did something just so insane that they just lost. Like I think when Bill became the vampire queen or whatever, that's when they jumped.
You know,
Oh, when he
you
combined
mean-
with Lilith?
Oh, you mean
Yeah.
the God thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's
yeah,
when the
that
show
was
jumped the shark.
I'll never forget. We used to have to go to a friend's house to watch it because we were too poor for HBO, and in payment we would make like jokes.
Yeah.
And like we kept it pretty close because you know they were new episodes. We didn't talk the whole time or anything. But I just remember the one episode where Bill's finally able to walk in the day after all these years, and John and I just couldn't stop talking in his accent about McDonald's breakfast because it wasn't available all day back then. Like it being available all day, it's still a relatively new thing. And when John does a wicked Bill Compton,
Can-
and he's
can
just
you do your
talking
Bill
about,
Compton,
like,
John?
Egg McMuffins and shit. It's so funny.
Oh God, it's been so long.
So good.
Yeah, so good. I just want a griddle. So good.
I want a McGriddle sandwich.
I need some hash browns.
Dude, he wants an Egg McMuffin. Say he wants an Egg McMuffin.
Okay, guys, seriously, don't look at me. I want an egg McMuffin.
It's so good. I mean, it's just like that's like my fondest True Blood watching memory. Like it really is because it's just awesome. And like we just must have talked about McDonald's.
I can get one for you, Bill. Just put it in the fridge. It's not the same.
It needs to be fresh, like your blood.
I went to McDonald's the other day. They're like, it was like 3, and they're like, would you like lunch or breakfast? Like, shut the fuck up. Yeah, I want breakfast.
breakfast
It's
every
not
hour.
real breakfast though.
It's
They
so
don't have all the options.
That's okay. They have McMuffins. That's all I give a shit about.
I need sausage biscuit. or
Everything else
something.
is dead to me.
Yeah,
Give me
we-
that Egg McMuffin.
But, we have serial vampires, we have cartoon vampires, we have TV, movie vampires. So,
Yeah.
Where are we at now on vampires though? Like that's
gosh.
the thing.
I mean, are we still at Twilight?
You know, I feel like we've come down
We're
from
post-
Twilight.
we're
a bit.
post-
We
we're
have
in a
Twilight
post-
Zombies
we're
with
in a
Warm
post-
Blood. What was that movie?
Warm Bodies?
Oh, that was unacceptable.
Yeah.
The source material was a
va-
lot better,
was a
but
vampire.
that actor in it's really good.
We're in post Twilight.
Yeah, we're
right now.
post Twilight. I feel like we've moved on from Twilight. I do think that the market's very saturated vampire wise. I think it's really hard to have a good vampire idea.
I haven't
anymore.
seen anything really that's a vampire film that even sticks out to me that's done
right 'cause-
recently.
Well, because I mean, it's
It's
died
all
off,
zombie
you know.
shit.
Yeah, that's the most popular thing. Now, last week, as one of my more favorite horror movies, I had mentioned 2008's "Let the Right One In."
Oh, wait a minute. You know where we are with vampire movies now. How many movies have gone to, the story, now see the real story behind it? And we had the Vlad the Impaler story, the Dracula version of. They're like, this is the story behind the story.
You mean
and
the
that's kind of
Dracula,
where we
Dracula
are now.
Untold?
Yes.
Oh
look at you with your
yeah.
goddamn
So I think that's kind of. I mean, this won't last long because you can't do it over again. But just that's kind of where we're at. Like, see the story behind the story. Like, you think
Dun, dun, dun.
but here's the real story.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that was a terrible movie, by the way. Did you actually see Dracula Untold?
I didn't.
It's god awful.
That's a shame.
It really
It's
is.
a shame.
I love how we all avoided Underworld and Van Helsing.
We need to talk about those movies. The first Underworld is good. It's good.
Is it good or is Kate Beckinsale really fun to look at?
That ass.
I still find it
I can't
bizarre.
even be mad
Here's
because
the
I
thing.
agree.
I still find it bizarre that in Underworld 2, Kate Beckinsale's husband had to direct her having sex with Michael Corbin.
I mean, shit happens.
Like,
Being in the
that's
entertainment
just a
field has gotta
little
be weird.
bizarre. I think, is just like, okay, baby, I need to see a little bit of your ass right here. And like that's just kind of weird.
I'm not hearing any flopping. If you're really slamming that dick, I'd hear some flop. Come on. Get that dick.
Do what we practiced last night.
Whoa.
Torture that dick. Come on, honey.
But that was the one thing that I always thought was bizarre about Underworld, was that he had to direct his wife having sex with someone else.
It's weird.
But yeah, and regarding what was the other movie?
Van Helsing.
Also
starring Kate Beckinsale and
weird,
her ass.
Right? Super weird.
Yeah.
What?
Well, there was one shot, and I mean, I don't think I saw Van Helsing, thank God. But there was a shot it was just a review of it on TV, and they showed a clip of it, and it's Hugh Jackman standing there, and in the foreground is literally just Kate Beckinsale's ass.
Yep.
And it's like, well, they know what's gonna put butts in seats is that butt.
Which is a shame because I would much rather look at Hugh Jackman's butt next to equal butt time. This is what we need in society.
I might
I'll tell you
look
this:
at that too.
there's
He's a
plenty of the
good-looking
movie. There's plenty in the movie that's for the ladies, because Hugh Jackman does strip down and turn into a werewolf.
Ow.
That's his thing.
Werewolf.
By the way, just spoil the movie for you. Hugh Jackman's a werewolf in the movie.
Spoiler alert.
Well, no, just don't go see it.
Just don't see it.
So,
you don't need to see
there
it.
has been a few things here and there.
I just think
Brian
it's
had
kinda...
mentioned earlier.
Excuse me.
In the TV realm, Brian mentioned earlier, the Vampire Diaries that's been running. Now it's going to be in its last season this year. They're finishing it up now. That's the Ian Somerhalder vehicle on the CW. And that derives also from.
Wow,
really
would you call that an Ian
books.
Somerhalder vehicle?
Who the fuck else is famous in that? Nobody.
Well, there's Stefan.
Yeah, what's his
I
name?
am
John?
so unfamiliar with these people. So.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. And then
Paul Wesley's
until
done
she
nothing
left the
else.
show, there was the lady, that pretty lady.
Yeah, you mean
That pretty lady?
Nina Degrassi Dobrev?
Yeah.
She did nothing before this, nothing.
All right. Well,
You
what
know.
did Ian Somerhalder do before this?
He was on Lost.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was in Lost. I mean, what's good about him too is, he's actually a person that cares about shit. He's done a lot of work for conservation of endangered animals, domestic adoption of house pets and stuff. He actually has a cause, and he doesn't seem like a total douche, you know. But I mean, that's one of the things in the landscape for sure. Vampire Diaries has been on. This is the 8th season.
Holy shit!
It's been on a while. True Blood was on for a long time.
Yes.
Buffy was on for a long time, and then too, I again from books. They did come out with Vampire Academy a couple of years ago, based on the books of the same name. The books aren't great, and the movies wretched. I couldn't even.
I
get
see it on
through.
Netflix all the time.
Me
it's
too.
still
And
there.
for my other podcast for Super Serials, we read the first book, and I wanted so much more from it. I'm so conscious of books that are aimed at young women. And I just wanted so much more from this than just some girl who wants a boyfriend. That's boiled down. That's all the book was about. And I couldn't
it's fallen
even,
that Twilight.
and I couldn't even get through the first 15, 20 minutes of the movie. 'cause it's
Wasn't
just
the writer
boring.
of Twilight Mormon? So obviously,
Twilight's
so
a
obviously her
letter of
female
Mormonism.
character is not going to be very progressive because she comes from a Mormon background.
Real talk, my half sister is Mormon and she loves Twilight.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question here, as we cap this episode off. What do you think vampire movies have to do to kind of become the next, iteration of vampire movies?
I think the writing needs to get better. I think that people oftentimes, when they're presented with a very niche genre, like a specific type of creature or monster or whatever you want to call it, it can be so easy to get really grandiose and lazy. But something like Let the Right One In didn't focus so much on the monster aspect, but rather, on the beastliness of the human condition. It deals with, little kids bullying little kids, even adults being in situations where, you aren't treating people the way that you should be doing so. I think that the next iteration, it needs to be about something else. That's, I think, in so many ways why Buffy works as a TV show, where other times things failed, and even to the point of True Blood as well. Buffy was actually about high school. True Blood is actually about marginalized people and oppressed people in society. When it's a greater reason, it's a greater thing, rather than just a monster gimmick. It has to. The writing has to be there. It has to
that goes
support
back to kind of like the early vampire movies, where they're about either sexual disease, either fears over immigration.
Yep.
That
I
sort
think
of thing.
vampire movies just need to keep being about things that are topical. That's where horror films are at their best, you know.
I think we're all saying the same thing in different ways.
Yeah. And a great American Nightmare, I believe is the name of the documentary. Great documentary on the historical context of horror movies throughout, the 20th century. Great documentary. But yeah, as long as they're topical and have a purpose, unlike something like Underworld, which has a purpose of latex.
I think personally that
so much latex.
Yeah, literally. For me, I think that, again, just kind of echoing what you guys are saying, they need to be topical about what's going on in our world now. I've always felt that vampires quite literally could be the archetype for the 1%.
Ooh,
not to get political, but I always felt that, the 1% kind of sucks the life out of everyone beneath them.
I would watch that movie, Brian.
Why isn't there a vampire movie in which the 1% are, the business owners, the people who, literally run the country, are actually vampires and they are actually sucking the life out of people? And I guess Blade kind of touches on that a little bit. They don't really go full into it because they go more into the action side of it. But I always have thought that vampires could be the next version of them, is deal with issues of income inequality that, a lot of people deal with. Mm-hmm. And, maybe someone stepping up and being the vampire hunter, so to speak.
Yeah,
and
I would
taking
watch
on
that. I would watch the shit out of that.
So, and then at the same time, those vampires have to return to being bloodthirsty monsters.
Oh, yeah.
That's the big thing. I don't want to see fucking Twilight vampires ever again. No. Those can go away. That had its time. It destroyed vampires, in my opinion.
They'll always be back, though.
Well, and just to be clear,
they're undead after all.
I don't think I was clear enough. I think Twilight actively harms young women in their mindsets. And
How do you
think
feel
it's
that?
Fucking bullshit.
How do you feel that way?
Because the only thing about Bella's character is that she wants a boyfriend. And she just wants Edward to be her boyfriend. She has no interests. She has no personality. She just wants to be dead. She wants to be a vampire. That's her only goal. She wants to be a vampire and fuck Edward.
And she thinks it's dreamy when he watches her sleep, and she just didn't even know.
Those are the only things that even
That's
remotely about.
creepy.
It's fucked up. It's fucked up. It is damaging to young girls, and I think it should be kept away from young women at all costs.
He's also like 100 years old,
awful.
and she's 17.
Oh, I mean, well, that you see that all the time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I can't necessarily go after too hard because that's prominent in a lot of the the lore, because they are ageless. But there are so many things that make me angry about Twilight, and when it came out, I knew it was going to be shit. But I read all the books anyway because I wanted to know what I was talking about.
Right.
I didn't know back then that I'd have a podcast where I could bitch about stuff. But I wanted to be like,
you got a podcast where not only can you bitch about the movie on one, but you could bitch about the book on the other.
Damn straight. Well, I told my other podcast we're never fucking read. There'll have to be so much alcohol before I will do anything with them. But I want to be clear that I've read every single fucking book and they're hot trash. Absolute hot trash. And just actively not feminist, and that it just makes my blood boil.
Wow.
Well, something doesn't have to be feminist, but be actively anti-feminist.
Yeah.
That's what the problem is.
It's anti-progressive. It's just disgusting.
Well, some of the things we skipped, guys, from Dusk Till Dawn. And by the way, guys, there is a Steven Seagal vampire movie called Against the Dark. I don't know about you, but I need to check that out. He looks like he made it 2009, so it's Fat Seagal.
Damn straight.
Fat Seagal.
Damn straight.
Queen of the Damned.
Oh,
Fright
fun
Night.
fact. I listened to the Queen of the Damned soundtrack today.
That's a good soundtrack.
It's a really good
soundtrack.
We've got Fright Night here.
And the remake.
30 Days of Night.
Yeah.
Just to name a few here. Hotel Transylvania, which is
we didn't mention Lost Boys, did we?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, did we?
We spent a long time on Lost Boys. Where the hell were you?
That's right.
You were on your fucking phone.
I
That's
was
what you were
looking
doing.
up the movies, dude.
Oh, okay.
I was looking up the movies.
Yeah, 60% of the time.
I was looking up the movies. Fuck you both. And then two. Wasn't Daybreakers a vampire?
That was a
movie?
vampire film too.
Ish.
That was
very
one.
Sci-fi? Do I remember it being
No, it dealt with kind of like a post-apocalyptic world in which vampires are dealing with basically the effects of not climate change, but just scarcity.
Yeah. That's right.
There are no more humans
that,
left.
yeah.
That actually is that's a fairly good movie.
It's a different approach.
It's a different
you know what I mean?
approach.
Like that's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
Stars Mr. Hawk. Ethan Hawke, Willem Dafoe, Sam Neill, good cast.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
definitely a great cast.
Very good cast.
Vampires
Like,
are terrifying
like,
in that movie too.
But it just like the writing just missed a little bit.
Oh yeah, the writing was not nearly as good as it should have been. If they had a good writer behind it, it probably would have been a much more memorable movie.
Absolutely.
But like the subject matter of basically, dealing with the effects of overpopulation and running out of the food supply and what happens.
It looks like one of those movies that's way too color graded. Like,
It is.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
hey, it's clearly a movie.
It's like an episode of
They
CSI.
beat that thing over its head with so much Da Vinci Resolve. It's not even funny.
There's so much blue in it. It's really bad. It's really bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously this isn't a genre that's going anywhere anytime soon. It just would be nice to see it in like the hands of a talented filmmaker every once in a while,
I'm telling you, income inequality. That's where the next thing's going.
Well, guys, I would say that episode definitely didn't suck. I want to die. Good
And then
work,
come
team.
back to life
For
as a
someone who
vampire.
does like such good transitions,
Oh
man.
man, you just
You lost a tiny bit
Yeah.
of thread there.
No, that was good. I think we kind of went over the whole spectrum there,
Gamut.
We did.
if you
and
will.
even into the future.
we did. So good
So-
work, y'all.
well, be sure to like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Google Plus at Psycho Show. If you have a favorite movie you would like for us to review or a question you want to throw at us, maybe you disagree with our analysis of vampires, or you think we're all anti-feminists, or you think we're uber-feminists. I mean, it could be both. We kind of went both directions on this. You can go ahead and contact us.
Well, no, I mean there were jokes in there, but I don't think there was any anti-feminist stuff. I did talk about titties a lot
And
And
ass.
Kate
and
Beckinsale.
asses.
And ass.
Yeah, so maybe just a little douchey.
Little
Maybe
bit.
just a little, yeah. All right.
But you can go ahead and contact us at our website.
Let's polish all the
Cinemapsych-
girls.
I'm trying to go ahead and say where to contact us, God damn it.
Yeah.
So you can go ahead and contact us at our website, cinemapsychoshow.com. And be sure to subscribe and give us reviews. Please, give us reviews. And catch our next show available every Friday.
You know that place between asleep and awake where you can still remember dreaming? That's where I'll always love you. Good night.